Joining us now is Rob Crain, who's a specialist on race relations, and talking about this support or not a lack of support, I guess I should say, for all the racial justice protests and what's been happening around our country. So, Rob, welcome in. Thanks for being with me.
You bet. Good morning to all of y'all.
You know, I would imagine, Rob, even in the cities where all this took place, where it's run by Democrat mayors and governors in those areas, that at the beginning of all this, people were more tolerant in those communities because they're basically just used to that kind of activity as far as Democrats and leaning left and causes and activists and whatnot. But at some point, even they are getting sick of the violence, right? Does this, kind of sway as far as a benefit or a disadvantage to either presidential candidate with all this going on this year?
That's a question that's probably out of my field of expertise. But, historically, we can go back to Dr. King in the 60s and his teachings of nonviolent protests. And, he had those other groups that he was dealing with who were not following nonviolent protests. And you saw the same dichotomy then. I mean, there was support by many for his cause, and he had to fight back what other elements were bringing into the picture, and that's what's happened here. You've got violence, and look, folks, these are blurry times where you got instigators on both sides who recognize that if we can create violence, it's going to cause turmoil. So, it's unclear as to who's causing which violence, but it doesn't matter. Violence is violence, and it's going to turn off the American people. That's not what we're about.
When you say unclear, what do you mean it's unclear? Who's causing this?
Well, there's different groups within. Look, I'm not here to debate what the different intelligence shows and so forth, but there's been different reporting on who is the instigators. And look, there's smart people who are doing bad things, and their political leanings are always not clear. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I tend to believe that this is probably coming from the left more so than the right, and this is more of the same old. We're not happy with President Trump, and I do believe that there's politics involved in all this. Let me ask you this. Did you see in any of the surveys or data that you've looked at that emotion is driving this as opposed to facts? My point is, these riots and protests start before the investigations are complete. So to me, that's an emotional reaction to something that you may not have all the facts on. And, probably should be reacting like that until you know exactly why you're out there.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an historical point as well. Dr. King had a quote about a riot. A riot is the voice of the unheard, was his quote. And, the people don't wait for investigations, and there are a lot of people who don't wait because they don't believe the investigations have been traditionally and historically fair and clear. And whether that's true or not, we need to have respect and honesty in our systems and our investigations. And, we've all got to listen to one another here. We can all throw rocks at one another. We can all make assumptions about one another. But the beautiful thing is about this country is when we sit down and listen to one another, we actually realize that what unites us is greater than what divides us. We don't want violence. There are those few that do for their own purposes, but the vast majority of Americans don't. And when we sit down and listen to each other, we understand that. We may have different ideas on how to get to our end goal, but, we have a lot more that unites us than what divides us here.
Well, no doubt praying for more peace and calm and less stress in 2021 for all of us. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you this morning.